You gotta tear me apart, Lisa!
My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
Hey, buddy, you gonna eat that sausage?
No, go past this part. In fact, never play this again.
Tell me something, my friend.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules? Ladies and gentlemen! Your complete attention, if you please.
The Epic Film Guys Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream for the Cure 2.0 special spotlight for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I am Epic Film Guy.
And I'm Epic Film Guy Justin, and yet again we are joined by the self-proclaimed god of podcasting, our own Potter expert himself.
The Hermione to my Harry to your
the
left.
Chos, A1 Cos, Loss, Boss, A-Stos. I don't even fucking know what I'm saying here. Welcome, Loisos.
Can we use the time turner and go back so Justin can give a better intro than that? God of podcasting, please.
Hey.
Man. Loisos. Welcome.
Thank you for having me once again.
That guy. In the house.
That is me.
Absolutely thrilled to be here to talk about the third installment in the Harry Potter franchise. And if you haven't tuned into the last two installments, just to kind of break this down for you, Loisos, again, is our Hermione. We've decided he knows everything about the Harry Potter books. And, you know, he's coming into his own femininity in this film.
Extremely accurate. I had my first PMS when this film came out. So
wow. And Justin is our Ron. He's just whimsical, and he has a pet rat, and he's a nasty ginger.
I'm telling you right now, I want the Scabbers trilogy. One thing walking away from this film before I go any further, give me a Scabbers trilogy. I don't care what happens after this movie. If I don't see more of that damn rat, I'm going to be disappointed. So give me the fucking rat, man.
And Justin is our noob. Justin's our Potter noob, so he's only seen a few of the films, never read any of the books. And I, of course, am our Harry, the glorious hero who will smash he who must not be named at the end of the day. I have seen all the films at least once or twice, and I absolutely love the franchise, so that's the angle that we're all approaching this from. Gentlemen, it's time to talk about the Prisoner of Azkaban. And Loisos, why don't you let us know what it's all about?
So, as Harry Potter enters his third year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he is developing some pubescent emotions, and he's going through a lot of turmoil in his mind, and which leads him to blow up his aunt like a balloon, which is an amazing sequence.
Have I mentioned how much I love the Dursleys in this whole series? Like, every sequence of the Dursleys, I love it. I love it so much.
I think he might have, yes. But as Harry returns to school, he learns that 13 years ago, a supporter of Lord Voldemort, he who must not be named, who shares a connection with Harry, a mysterious connection that is revealed later on, but he was imprisoned in Azkaban for murder. But now he has escaped and is looking for Harry because he views Harry as the only thing standing in the way of you-know-who's return. So, and then also it is discovered that there is another supporter of you-know-who lurking within the castle walls. So not only does Harry have to go to class and learn new things as a Hogwarts student, he is also evading a serial killer.
All right, and it's safe to say that, and we did talk about it when we did the Chamber of Secrets spotlight, but this one I feel like territory's a little darker even. It's a little bit darker. this time around. I think because, of course, Christopher Columbus out and Alfonso Cuarón coming in, directing this film, so you definitely get a lot more. It just feels like a much, much darker, much more serious affair. You do still have some fun, whimsical scenes. Blowing up the ant at the beginning of the film is a perfect example of that. There are some other examples of it, but yeah, this is kind of the film that I really view where Harry Potter really starts to grow up, I think. And I mean, It makes sense because they're 13, so they're all hitting puberty. But yeah. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that we see Harry Potter do is after he does blow up his aunt, which is an extremely fun sequence to watch. He decides to leave his life with the Dursleys, as far as I know, because I haven't seen the one after this. So I don't know what happens after the fact. But he takes a stand, and up until this point, we've kind of seen him be pushed around by them a lot. Whenever we see those scenes with him there. So he stands up for himself. He tells his aunt, shut up. And he walks right out. He grabs his luggage and he's out of there. And that's what leads him onto his journey back to Hogwarts. So for me, like that's definitely a large step for the character himself to kind of be like, fuck this. I'm done with this shit. There's no reason for him to be there. And coming from my standpoint, watching the film, I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is he there? Why is he still there anyways? It doesn't make any sense. He's got friends in other places he could go to. Like, it doesn't, even though legal guardian aside, get out of there. So for me, that was a great opening to the film. I thought it was extremely fun. But definitely, Nick, the main thing coming off of this as a noob, as you like to call me, in the Harry Potter franchise, is this film looks a lot different. It feels a lot different. Now, we're with these characters that we already know from the first two films. Again, they're the same. They're developing and they're growing, but you have that comfort level there. But man, does this movie look different. It's one of the things, Loisos, that you had pointed out to me before I saw it. You're like, no, you're going to maybe be a little bit in shock over the difference in how the film looks. And you were definitely right, because the camera never stops moving in this thing. I swear to God, it's very smooth though. It's not like it's, awkward movement, but it's always moving with the characters. It's always going around them and sliding and swooping. It's never sterile and just kind of placed in a very stale type of shot. Like, it's always trying to be interesting and innovative, and I think that Cuarón, being the director, adds a lot to the reasoning for that. But it feels like an auteur sat in the director's chair in this film. And I love Chris Columbus. Believe me, he was, again, the right guy to do the first two. But there's a certain level of expertise and class that comes in when you see this film for the first time.
I actually want to pitch it over to Loisos, because speaking of Harry leaving home for the first time, Loisos, how do you feel about the night bus?
Oh, I love the night bus scene. Like, when I was reading the book, it's exactly how I imagined the night bus to look and move. So when it's this really wacky scene, and John Williams composes this really bizarre kind of scherzo where it's like all these clashing instruments, and like it really helps the scene with a certain sense of energy and wackiness to it. I'm not a huge fan of the Shrunken Head, I have to say.
I love the Shrunken Head. The Shrunken Head's hilarious.
I like the idea. I like the idea of the Shrunken Head, but I don't know, grates on the nerves a little bit. But I love Ernie with the driver with the huge glasses.
Oh, and yeah, the driver's great. The driver.
It's so much fun
about the bus.
It's so much fun.
It is. It's a really fun sequence, and I feel like what these films try to do is they try to give you every single time before you get back to Hogwarts. We've talked about this in the other spotlights, but they give you a little bit more of the wizarding world. And this time, instead of going straight to Hogwarts, or instead of whatever else, now we go and we meet David Thewlis's character, Remus Lupin.
Oh God, you reminded me of Wonder Woman for a second.
You're welcome.
Oh boy!
So we get to meet Remus Lupin, who of course is our new defense against
the dark arts
teacher. So I think he's great in this film. He's actually one of the best additions to the cast this time around. We'll talk about some others as we go on here, I'm sure, but man, do I love his character. I think he's a really, really great character, and we definitely haven't seen the last of him, which is really, really great. And I can't wait to just kind of revisit all those other moments he's going to be part of. But Justin, what did you think of Remus?
I love the character, and I love David Thewlis a lot. He's one of those British actors that show up in a lot of movies, especially a lot of the British gangster movies. One of my favorite gangster movies, Gangster #1 with Paul Bettany. He's in it, and he's amazing. He plays a character called Freddie Mays, and so the whole time I'm sitting there watching this, and I know Lois House doesn't know, I kept going, Freddie fucking Mays, you fucking cunt, bloody bastard. And I kept thinking of him in that way, but he's a very interesting character. And as soon as I knew he was going to be on screen, oh man, I was really excited about that. I don't know if I should necessarily spoil yet the kind of backstory.
We've spoiled these movies plenty.
What I'm saying is this character has a very special secret, which kind of at the end of the movie leads you off.
That Remus Lupin has lycanthropy. Wink.
He's a lycanthrope. Oh, yeah.
Wink, wink, wink. He's a fucking werewolf.
Supposedly, I read, Brian, I don't know if this is correct or not, but he had Thewlis had auditioned for a role in Chamber of Secrets, but got turned down. And then he got the role in this. I don't know if you know anything about that, but I thought he was a great addition. I mean, the cast in these movies so far, being the noob that you're calling me, I've had no problems with right off the bat. I love how in each film they're bringing in a new character, or at least so far, a new teacher at Hogwarts that have been interesting and exciting to watch. And I hope that continues. Emma
Thompson.
Emma, yeah.
In this movie. Oh my God, she is incredible.
I didn't even know it was her. And I was like, wait, who? And then I was like, oh my God, she literally sinks herself into that role and that character and she literally, I couldn't even tell it was her. She's so good.
Oh, she's amazing. I want to get from that though, because of course, Richard Harris tragically passed after, right before actually the release of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So of course they had to recast one of the most pivotal roles in the entire franchise, which of course is Albus Dumbledore. And Michael Gambon. Thoughts, Lois Sauce?
It takes some getting used to. It's at first it's a little jarring because he does lean into the very kind of flamboyant side of Dumbledore and less on.
I'll say, just to jump in here, not to cut you off, but I'll say it's incredibly jarring because literally his first scene as Dumbledore is him standing up in front of the entire hall at Hogwarts, and he's like yelling and like projecting, and that is not Richard Harris's Dumbledore at all. And I mean, maybe that's Michael Gambon putting his stamp on the character from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. He said he was unconcerned with like really changing or copying Harris, or he wanted to just do his own interpretation, and actually putting a slight Irish accent on for the role. I didn't hear that. Maybe I didn't listen close enough, but
it's definitely there. Yeah.
Now, I had read, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but they were talking about bringing in Ian McKellen into the role.
That's right. Yeah, there was, but it would have been too close to Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings. I think
too close.
But as a noob, it didn't bother me, but I'm sure for those of you that grew up watching these movies, and especially you, Brian, maybe it was more jarring than it was.
It's jarring. I don't mind him in this movie. I actually love little moments when, again, I guess we're getting in. I'm gonna spoil something.
Nitty gritty.
When Harry and Hermione return after. Setting everything right with the time turner and everything, and they rush into the hospital wing, and Professor Dumbledore's walking out, and they're like, "Professor, we did it," and he's like, "Did what? Good night." And like, just I love that line read and that
little subtle nod, kind of.
It's so great. It's so great. I have problems with his portrayal in the next film, which we'll talk about in the next.
Saying that, yeah, we'll get to that when we get there. By the end, we'll say we'll get to. We've already finished that, so.
But once the films continue, I think you really, especially in the 5th and 6th films, I think he's just absolutely fantastic. But it does take some getting used to as a fan of the way Richard Harris portrayed that character.
Yeah, it is for me. Michael Gambon was my Dumbledore because he was the first one that I saw. Because the first film I saw in this franchise was Deathly Hallows Part 1. So for me, I got to come back after the fact and experience Richard Harris in the role, and then see Michael Gambon take on the role. I will 100% agree with Lois Sauce when we talk about Goblet of Fire, but we'll save that for when we get to that spotlight. But yeah, I think in this film, I think it's definitely different. But I do like he's got a lot of kind of really nice character moments with Harry and with Hermione that are really, really nice in this film. And I think we can't really go any further without talking about Hermione, because in this film, almost I would say more so than any of the other films in this franchise, she is my favorite character in this film. I love Hermione Granger. I love her anyway, but I love her in this film especially. And one of my favorite recurring gags in the entire Harry Potter franchise is literally throughout the first half of the movie, she keeps showing up out of nowhere, and every time Ron Weasley's like, where did she come from? How did she get here? Like, where was she? Every single time, I absolutely love it. And of course, it's that thing where once you watch through the movie, you realize she's been using the time turner to take more classes than you could possibly take.
All of the classes.
Literally all of them. Which is great.
And in this movie, just like Harry is standing up for himself, Hermione is also not taking any shit whatsoever. She is completely not having any of Professor Trelawney's nonsense. She punches Malfoy in the face.
Yeah, she punches him in the face, and it looks real. It's like there's a huge impact when she hits him. I love that scene.
Saga. Legitimately one of the greatest scenes of the entire saga, when she just hauls off and decks him.
Yeah,
slugs him, dude, hard, and you feel that punch. I loved that scene. I didn't expect that. I really didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah, that was absolutely amazing. So I love her in this film. I really, really love Ron in this film as well, and I love Harry. I really think the core trio of characters, every films so far in the franchise, I think they've grown more into those characters. They've grown more comfortable with playing them. They've kind of made the role their own just that much more. I mean, of course, it's always been theirs, but just even that much more.
Yeah, and Quaron really worked with the actors to develop their characters and help their performances along. One of my favorite stories about this series is that when they were first starting out, Quaron really wanted the actors, the trio, the Golden Trio, as they're called in the fandom, to, as an exercise, he assigned them an autobiographical essay where he assigned each of the actors to write an essay about your character and really kind of get into your character's head and the emotional experience of the character. And of course, Emma Watson turned in a 12-page essay with liner with all of these footnotes, and it was very long and complex, and Daniel Radcliffe turned in a one-page essay, pretty simple, and then Rupert Grint didn't turn in his essay. He never did the assignment. And when Quaron asked him, why didn't you turn in, what happened to the essay? He said, well, my character, Ron, wouldn't do the essay. And Quaron was like, okay, well, you understand your character. That's exactly what your character would do.
Good point. That's perfect. That is literally perfect.
That's one of my favorite stories, about the behind the scenes stories of the Potter franchises. Quaron tried to get these young actors to really get inside their characters' heads, and they understand their characters perfectly just from the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Because Hermione would write a 12-page essay.
That's one of the things I love about these characters. They're so different from one another, but yet they're this strong, cohesive unit. The more you see them interact with each other in these films, you just feel like they're a family, more than best friends. They're literally hard to pull apart from one another, and I love seeing them work together in these situations. But I got to tell you right now,
yeah, can we talk about some of the aspects of the film that suck?
Well, no, let me talk about my favorite.
Okay.
Before we get to the stuff that sucks, okay, it's a very special thing called a hippogriff, and God, did I love this thing. I love the creatures of these movies. I mean, being a kid watching these movies, that's what I would have looked at and been excited about. So, it really brought me back to being a kid in the 80s and watching like the Never-Ending Story. When you see Harry jump on the hippogriff, and he's trying to like master this relationship real quick, and then when he jumps on him and he's flying around, I love that whole sequence so much. It brought me back to being a kid again, and it's got those strong fantasy elements you would expect from a movie like this. I absolutely fell in love with that scene.
Buckbeak the hippogriff, and a lot of effort was gone in to make that character. That creature realistic. For example, like one scene, Buckbeak just poops. Just like I wanted to point it out to you, Justin, but I think we missed it. But I mean, that's just a small detail. Like, but you know, they put real effort into making.
I mean, it's a living thing. It takes a shit.
Exactly.
Man. It shits on stuff.
Exactly.
It shits.
Well, but that's attention. That's attention to detail that I really like.
Speaking of taking shits on stuff, I feel like Loisas is eger to do it.
Let him go. Let him go
with this film. So go ahead and lay into it.
All right. Well, as a fan of the books, I think this is one of the sloppiest adaptations out of all of the film series. I don't want to harp on it too much because this is a film after all, and not the books, which I understand. Of course, the first two are long films, and the fact that they include every detail, some may view as a hindrance. I know that as critically, this is probably the best reviewed of the series. Prisoner of Azkaban is the best reviewed of the series critically. But as a fan of the books, like I understand that, but there's so many things missing from this film that I feel like is even integral to the storyline that's just not included at all. It'd be nice to know who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are, what the importance of the map is, inconsistencies in the world. Like, I can't stand the opening scene when Harry's using magic outside of school, and in the very next scene, he uses magic outside of school, and Uncle Vernon says, "You're not allowed to use magic outside of school." And then he gets in trouble for it later on in the series. It just, to me, it's like inconsistencies like that really bug me. Not only does the movie differ from the book, which I can take, but I also just feel like this movie, the pacing is just so breakneck and
it is.
So quick.
It really is, yeah.
That it doesn't give you a chance to breathe and really soak in the world like the first two. It almost feels like a claustrophobic experience because it's just nonstop like information. And if you have to be paying attention during this movie because there's so much dialogue and quick back and forth and exposition that's just quickly brushed over and move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing. It kind of gets frustrating to watch, in my opinion.
I would agree because, I mean, if you think about it, like, this is shorter than Chamber of Secrets was by a good 20 minutes or so. And I really think this film could have used those extra 20 minutes to kind of pad out everything. Think about, like, you get introduced to Hogsmeade in this chapter here, and you don't really get to spend any substantive time really learning much about it, to the where you could probably ask somebody who had just seen just the first three films, what's Hogsmeade? They'd be like, a town next to Hogwarts. That's
well, I mean,
all they'd be able to tell you, really.
Yeah, but I mean, not only stuff like that, but like exposition that I feel like is important. Like stuff with Harry's dad at school is like really important to the character, and I feel like we need to know like some of Sirius Black's backstory, which we didn't even touch on Sirius Black yet, but I don't know, stuff like that I feel like is so important to the storyline and it's missing in this story. And I feel like if you haven't read the books, you might not get the full experience of what exactly is going on. I mean, Justin, you haven't read the books, so
no, I haven't, and I definitely agree with you 100%. Like coming off of watching the second film, and then the first one, like where things are laid out in a slower fashion, and you get to soak it in, you get to take your time with it. In this movie, I definitely lost some stuff, so it's probably one that I should go back and rewatch just to get some details. I definitely didn't pick up every little detail because of the breakneck speed of the pacing. It was way too quick. I didn't like that it didn't give you a chance at all just to breathe. Like, hey, give me a shot of Harry in his bedroom, just sitting there. You know what I mean? Like, give me something to, okay, I can breathe for a minute and soak in that last scene I just watched and all of the dialogue and information I was fed. But we do have to move on to Sirius Black because I think it's one of the most important things about this film. I mean, we got Gary Oldman in here as Sirius Black, and there is a lot of hype behind this character in this movie. They build up this character so much before you even get a chance to see him in person. It's insane. Like, I feel like he's such a strong presence before you even get to see him. It's awesome. And I really like that it takes a little bit of the hype away from the, well, whatever you want, name not to be said or whatever.
Close enough.
Whatever, close enough. Whatever. Hey, I'm a newbie.
And if you think about it, this is the only, I believe this is the only film in the entire franchise that he does not appear in whatsoever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do not get any Voldemort in this film whatsoever. I mean, of course, they name drop him a few times here and there, but you know, you get to see him as, you know, young Tom Riddle in the second film, and you get to see him attached to the back of Quirrell's head in the first one, and then we'll get, you know, to later films in the franchise. But yeah, so it really tries to kind of paint Sirius Black as like this. I mean, of course, you get these crazy shots. I actually put up in the live stream, which you guys will see when you can watch this live, but just the shot of the newspaper of, you know, them struggling with Sirius Black, and he just looks like a crazed, like, savage lunatic, which is really, really great because it really kind of plants that idea in your head as a viewer for the first time that, you know, wow, this is like, you know, just Gary Oldman sells this so well in just like little newspaper snippets of just like this repeating GIF on the front of a newspaper.
I love that whenever they're in a scene and you see it and it just keeps repeating the same thing, but you're like, it's such a presence to be felt in the film, and coming in and knowing it's Gary Oldman as a fan of him, you know, you're automatically like, wow, you're expecting something great. And when he does show up on screen, I think he's fantastic. And I love the little twist that's there, that it's like, oh, things aren't as they seem.
Yeah, and when you first see him and the camera zooms in on him and John Williams comes in with the score, dun dun, it's a literal dun dun dun, like it's a huge moment. And Gary Oldman's performance in that scene, he has waited so long for this moment, and you get that sense of desperation and that sense of like, I love that line read that he does, like, I did my waiting. 12 years of it in Azkaban, like he's bursting at the seams to just murder this person.
Yeah. That's the other great thing too. You bring up Azkaban as well, because this is also, we'll get a lot more of it, especially in a couple of films coming up in the franchise, but this is also our first real big dip into Azkaban prison with the Dementors, who are just creepy motherfuckers.
Oh man, that imagery is probably, if I had to put one thing on my top of favorites list for this film, that would be it. That imagery alone immediately set this film apart from the previous two for me, especially being a hardcore horror fan. That with the inclusion of a werewolf, and the darker tone and the darker look to the film's more muted. It's less colorful in a lot of the
saturated,
scenes. You know, and man, the Dementors, beautiful imagery. There's a shot I remember where they're just like floating. It's like it's at night, moonlight, and you just see like a handful of them just floating there, and like a hand goes in front of the camera in front of Hogwarts, and I literally was in awe. And I'm like, this is the movie for me. This is what I love. This is what I live for.
It's really, really great. And for you guys that are watching there on the live stream, we're going to have to wrap it up for you guys. Now, this spotlight will continue, and when we do the full release of this as a podcast, you'll be able to hear our final thoughts on the film, as well as a few other thoughts, because I know we're still chomping at the bit. We've got a few more things to say, but we've got tons more content here for the live stream for The Cure. So I want to thank all you guys for checking out this very special spotlight of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potter. Check out the release episode for the trivia code for this spotlight and for our final ratings and thoughts. Okay. Thank you guys all very much, and on with the live stream for The Cure.